In China, it's a little bit different because privacy is not, it's known, but the rules and laws protecting people's privacy are not as robust. And you see technology companies taking advantage of that. So this top example here is Baidu has a product called the BaiFa 100. And this is basically a asset management, it's a mutual fund that was launched by Baidu that takes search sentiment and search statistics, combines that with a CSI 100 index, so the Shanghai index, to create a financial product. Now, if you've been following the Shanghai stock market over the past couple of months, you know that, well, the past year, you know that recently it's gone, it's really gone up and grown quite rapidly, and then over the past the past month and a half or so, it's dropped dramatically. Previous to that, this fund that Baidu had set up was beating the market by about 15% in general. And how did they do that? They took big data. Nobody else is doing this. Yahoo's not doing this. Google's not doing this. For whatever reason, they're not doing it. But in China, it's possible to do, and we're seeing companies do this. Another example, the previous presenter talking about fintech and some of the startups there. Credit scoring in China has been an issue, especially on the retail side. So the PBOC, the People's Bank of China, the central bank, has a nationalized credit database. In that nationalized credit database, it covers 800 million consumers in China. Now, on one of the previous slides, you saw that the population of China is approaching 1.5 billion. That means just over half of the population actually has a credit score. 10 years ago, when I first got to China, the best way to assess somebody's credit was to look at their mobile phone statement. You could go to Bank of China on one side of the street and take out a mortgage for your home. You could walk to ICBC on the other side of the street and take out the same mortgage for the same place twice, because there weren't consolidated credit databases on the back end. Now what's happening is the government is actually getting involved in this. The government about 4 or 5 months ago said to the technology companies, hey, you're going to set up credit database platforms for consumer credit in China. Why did they do that? Because going back to what we were talking about before, they realize that the industry has to change. They realize, they look at this 800 million record database, only 300 million of those records actually had data behind it, which is atrocious. I mean, if I look at my credit score back in the States, even though I'm not there now, the number of transactions that have been logged for me over the decade and a half that I've had a credit card is massive. But in China, that doesn't exist. It does exist in one place, though, and that's on Taobao, that's on Tmall, it's on the Alibaba platforms. So who better to create a credit scoring application than the companies that know these transactions? I was giving a talk a couple weeks ago in Shanghai, and we're talking about the same idea. And a girl raised her hand in the audience, and she said, I was on Taobao a couple weeks ago, and I got an offer. And so for those of you who don't know, Taobao is the C2C, B2C platform that Alibaba has in China, where you can buy nearly everything. I buy everything from garlic to bicycle tubes to computers for my office on that platform. So this girl asked the question. She said, look, I was using Taobao, and they gave me an offer. And they said, you can have 10,000 renminbi in credit, so say $1,500 US in credit. And she said, how did they know to give me that offer? And I said, well, did you use the offer? And she said, yes, I did use the offer. I said, well, they knew because they knew you were going to use it, because they look at your transaction records. And that's not a bank that's offering that. That's purely a technology company that's offering consumer credit. On the flip side of that, they offer microcredit for merchants as well. This is something that Alibaba has been doing on the Tmall platform for years. Is for merchants in China, it largely works on an escrow system. So it can be up to 2 weeks before you receive money for the goods that you've shipped. And Taobao offers credit on the back end. So the government says, okay, look, we don't have a handle on what's happening in credit, but the technology companies do. So they push the technology companies to set up these credit platforms. And now these credit platforms are one of the more accurate ways to judge consumer credit in China after only a couple of months. So much so that certain embassies, the Luxembourg embassy was the first one to do it, actually accept credit scores from Alibaba's credit platform for visas for traveling abroad. So historically, if you were a Chinese individual and you wanted to go traveling and you were going individually traveling to the Schengen area or to Europe, you would need to bring bank statements to the embassy, and you would need to prove that you could support yourself, that you had the money in the bank to be able to go and take this trip and be reliant on yourself rather than on the society in terms of wherever you're going. Now, they use these credit platforms to assess credit worthiness. So if you're a Chinese national and you go to the Luxembourg consulate and you apply for a visa, all you have to do is show them this score, and that's sufficient for them to understand that your credit worthiness to be able to travel abroad, and helps you get the visa.